Hey, hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jesse, and today I'm going to be doing a video that I saw over on TikTok. I saw this audio created by DreaReads, which I just found their account recently and I'm obsessed. They have so many fantastic recommendations on their TikTok feed. So of course, I'm going to leave a link to their TikTok down below in the description. Go and check them out. Go and show them some love. Full credit to them for this video, but they created an audio where they basically go through a series of different recommendation style questions, talking about books that you will always recommend, books that you would never recommend, books that you hated but would still recommend to other people. Anyway, that's what we're doing today. This is basically a book tag that I'm bringing over from BookTok. Again, credit to the creator down below in the description. Go and check them out. Without further ado, let's get started. A book that I will always recommend. I bet y'all are thinking that I'm gonna pick a little black and white book for this one, and you're wrong. You're wrong. I'm not picking my cliche answer. I'm going with The Miracles of the Namia General Store. I love this book. I feel like this book is like the perfect representation for who I am as a reader. Like every element of this book I love. In The Miracles of the Namia General Store, we have this general store, and the owner used to basically offer up advice to his past customers. And it's been years since the general store has been opened. It's now abandoned. And we follow three delinquents who end up holding up in the abandoned general store, and a letter drops through the mail slot. So for one night only, the Namia General Store advice box is reopening, and these three boys will be running the advice box and uncovering these heartfelt, emotional stories from these strangers. When it comes to elements that come through in the storytelling, it does the dang thing for me. Oh my god. It's one of those books that has weaving storylines, which if you know anything about me, that's one thing that I love in a book. If a book has weaving storylines that collides together in a very satisfying way by the end, I'll probably love that book. And that ends up happening here. Throughout the book, we're learning about the lives of the people who are writing these letters asking for advice, and some of the stories and some of the things that they are going through is so emotional and so heartbreaking, and you really get to know the depths of the characters. And I feel like that's something else that this book really excels at. We have a really interesting plot, and we have really fantastic characters. We have that happy medium. Not only are we learning about the characters that are writing letters, but we're also learning about the boys who are at the Namia General Store giving the advice. And everything is just flushed out so well. I'm realizing that I'm overhyping this book, so I'm gonna stop myself right now. Maybe I'll just like keep gatekeeping this book, except it says over 12 million copies sold worldwide. So, which is interesting because I feel like not a lot of people talk about this book, so it still feels like underhyped to me, but maybe it's not as underhyped as I thought. Where's The Miracles of the Namia General Store Lovers Club? That's what I want to know. Where was my invite? Did it get lost in the mail? Probably. A book that I will recommend if I feel like we have the same reading taste. This was a hard one for me because I feel like my reading tastes are all over the place, and I feel like it's very rare these days that people are like, oh, we have the same reading taste. Like more times than not, a lot of you guys are like, I like watching your videos, but like we don't have the same reading taste at all. I read such different books than you, and I even hate all of your favorite books. And I'm like, cool, well, I'm glad that you're enjoying the content regardless. But the book that I would pick for this, if we have similar reading taste, Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. This book is about a boy whose brother has just died, and he has decided that he is going to get revenge. He's got revenge on the brain as he steps into the elevator, and he is going to go and do something about it. But as the elevator begins to go down, ghosts begin appearing and sharing in on their own stories about getting revenge. This book is just haunting and beautiful and perfect. I'll say it, it's perfect. This is one of those books that I wish I could go back in time and read it for the first time, because I went into this book without any expectations, not really knowing what I was getting myself into, and just the journey of reading this book for the first time, like it's sad that I will never get to experience that again because this book impacted me so much. Each page I flipped, the farther I got into it, the deeper I connected to the story and the deeper I fell in love with this book. The book is written in verse, so it's very poetic and it has just this amazing flow. And it's one of those books, like not to be dramatic, but like I left it feeling like I was a changed person. Like it rocked my world. Again, I find myself in a position where I am overhyping a book. Can't stop, won't stop, that's that. Read it and you will understand. A book that I loved but wouldn't recommend. I knew my answer for this one instantly because when I read this book, I loved it so much, but like I knew that it's not a book that I would ever want to recommend. One, because I don't want people to read it and then come at me and ruin my experience of this book and be like,
that was the worst book I've ever read.
And two, it's a very confusing book, and I know it's not one that's going to click for everybody, and that is Kaleidoscope by Brian Selznick. When you look into a kaleidoscope, you have this like trippy view of the world, and that's exactly what this book does. I think books like this, ones that are often left to the reader to decipher, and are stories that are open-ended, open to interpretation. I feel like a lot of people just don't connect to books like this. Like they want to know what happens in the end, they want to be guided through the confusion, and they want answers. And this is a book that really does not provide any of those things. To me, it was everything. It had me all all up in my feels, and the second that I got to the end, I wanted to flip back to page 1 and begin again. A book that I didn't like but would recommend to others. For this one, I'm going with Bookish and the Beast. This was a hard one to figure out an answer for, but I love this trilogy as a whole. For the most part, like, it does it for me. But when I got to this book, the final book in the trilogy, I think I was just kind of done with fairy tale retellings. I've kind of moved past that era where I was just like,
Oh, I'm so sick of fairy tale retellings.
like, I'm open to them now. But there for a while, it was like every book ever being released was a fairy tale retelling, and I was sick. Just like the oversaturation, I just can't handle it, you guys. Cannot handle it. Publishers just see this one popular thing, and then that's all we get, and it just... I'm gonna scratch my eyeballs out. I think it also bothered me because books 1 and books 2 took place at a conference, and this one didn't. And it was just like such a big shift. I was like, wait, why are we not at a con? The first 2 were at a con. We need to be at a con. Con. And then to me, it also felt like a Disney Channel original movie, which, let me just say, I love Disney Channel original movies, at least the ones from back in my day. But the thing is, looking back on those films, like, I recognize the fact that they were cheesy. They were cringe. They were not as great as I remembered. I think I also just like really wasn't a huge fan of the romance in this book, and I think partly because it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling that it's just, there's no surprise. But it is one that I think that a lot of other people would like because it is very bookish. There is a romance. They're kind of enemies to lovers, though I would argue that it's not that great of an example of enemies to lovers, and I feel like a lot of other people would really enjoy it. A book that I wish more people would have recommended to me sooner. For this one, I'm gonna say Mistborn, though I'm not super confident in this answer. Mostly because I don't think that it's I wish people would have recommended this to me sooner. It's that I just wish I would have given into those recommendations sooner, because I'm the worst when it comes to recommendations. Like, when people recommend books, I'm excited. I love that. Please keep recommending me books, but it will take me years to get to books sometimes, and I hate that about myself. But it's also something that I just can't help about myself. Also, looking at this book just makes me sad because I never finished the trilogy, and it's been so long since I read this first book that I just think that I need to reread this book in order to read the rest of the books. And when will that happen? When will that happen? Who knows? Because I am the worst at following through with things. I am the worst at committing myself to trilogies and series, and I wish I was better. This is something that I'm so tired of talking about. Like, this is one of the Jesse the Reader tropes. I'm over here like, I'm not good at series. Y'all are over there like, shut up, we get it. I should honestly be excited about the fact that I get to reread this in order to continue on with the trilogy, because it's going to be really fun rereading this book, because I loved this book when I first read it, even though it took me a few years to be nudged by you guys recommending it to me. But you finally pushed me over the edge. I picked it up, I read it. It did take me nearly a month to read, but just because a book takes you a long time to read does not make it a bad book. In fact, this book is near perfection. It probably is perfect. I'll circle back and clarify that once I get to my reread. A book by an author that I will always recommend. Here's the thing, I'm gonna say Jason Reynolds, because even though not every single one of his books that I've read has ended up on my like top tier favorites list, I've still enjoyed each and every one of them. I've yet to have a miss when it comes to Jason Reynolds, but I still think the top tier one that I would recommend, I'm gonna go with Long Way Down again. So Long Way Down it is. This is me recommending it twice in this video. Go read it, please. And then please come back and tell me how you felt about it. Even if you didn't like it, I will accept your opinion. I will hear you out, but especially if you loved it. If you loved it, come running back to me, okay? You could read this book in an hour, so there's no excuse. Go to the library, go to the bookstore, whatever you do, pick it up, then come back and tell me. I'm really trying to convince you guys to read this book, but I haven't talked about it in a while, so I'm getting passionate about it again. A book that I wish more people would recommend. All my favorite books, duh. But the one that came to mind when thinking about this question, because I wanted to pick a book that I feel like I don't see that much love for, at least in my feeds, is this book called King and the Dragonflies. I read this a few years ago and I loved it, but I feel like I never really talk about it that often, which is a disgrace to this book because it's a really great book. It is a middle grade book. We follow a young boy named King who is gay, and his brother Khalid died, and he believes that through death his brother turned into a dragonfly. It's a story of grief, secrets, and ultimately just accepting who you are as a person. Despite what anybody thinks about you, just loving yourself fully. This book actually feels like the middle grade version of The Astonishing Color of After. If you loved that book, I feel like you will love this book as well. It's literally just like the middle grade version of that book. A little bit of a different perspective, but still really, really good. Really, really heartfelt. Really, really emotional. Really, really, really. It's just a beautiful book from beginning to end. Highly recommend. A book that everyone recommended me that I would recommend. I'm going to be a cliche little boy right now, but cliche I will be. Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. How cliche can I be? Very cliche. as you can see. The thing is, when I first joined BookTube, I hadn't read the Percy Jackson series, and that was like the book that I was constantly recommended, and finally one year I gave in and I read the series and I loved it. And I am forever grateful for everybody that recommended it to me because I love this series so much. I need to revisit it soon, especially before the series drops on Disney+. It's such a wild adventure filled with so many fantastic characters. You learn so much about Greek mythology along the way, and I just look back on my time of reading the Percy Jackson series with so much joy. Like, I just had so much fun reading this series. I love it, I love it, I love it. I'm cliche, I'm cliche, I'm cliche. At least I'm self-aware. Last one. A book that everyone recommended to me that I would not recommend. I used to be afraid of talking about the fact that I didn't like this book because of how much love there is for this book out there, but that is The Atlas Six. This book just really did not work for me. This is a fantasy dark academia book, and honestly, like, the description alone is so fascinating and like had me like really intrigued and really excited to read it. In this book, only 6 of the greatest magicians are chosen to become a part of the Alexandrian society. The chosen will basically secure a life of power. That sounds fascinating, right? But then I got into it and it just did not work for me. 1, the world building was atrocious. I'm sorry. I don't know if it got better with the second book, but this first book, no. 2, the characters are confined into this like one character trait. Instead of being like multifaceted characters, they're like stuck in this one little thing. And heaven forbid they step outside of that and show other sides of who they are. That's why I chose this book for this answer. I'm gonna go crawl in a hole and hide now in case you guys attack me. That is the recommendations book tag. Again, I did not create this. I'm leaving a link down below in the description to the creator. Go and check them out. Go and show them some love. But I want to hear from you guys down below in the comments now. What is your go-to book recommendation? Like, when somebody comes to you and they're like, what's your favorite book? What book do you recommend? What is the answer that you have prepared when you're asked this very intense question? Such a hard question to answer. But I feel like my go-to is Miss Peregrine's. Listen, I didn't bring up Miss Peregrine's until just now. Let me know all your thoughts down below in the comments. If you like this video, be sure to go and hit that like button. If you want to see more bookish content from me, be sure to go and hit subscribe or go and hit that bell icon and you'll be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope your day is bright, that tomorrow is brighter. Keep reading what your heart desires, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye.